700 meters of water, less than 7 football fields. Through that gap, 3% of global oil, 12% of global wheat, and the only exit for Russia's Black Sea fleet. One country writes the rules. One treaty from 1936. Turkey. The Black Sea is a bathtub. 2,400 kilometers of coastline. 6 countries border it: Russia, Ukraine, Turkey, Bulgaria, Romania, Georgia. One exit. South from the Black Sea, you enter the Bosphorus. 31 kilometers long, narrowest point 700 meters. Cutting straight through Istanbul, a city of 16 million. The Bosphorus feeds the Sea of Marmara, which feeds the Dardanelles, 61 kilometers more, which spills into the Aegean. Roughly 38,000 ships pass each year. Russian crude, Ukrainian wheat, every warship leaving the Black Sea. All through the same gap. July 20th, 1936. A hotel on Lake Geneva. 10 countries signed the convention regarding the regime of the straits. Everyone in maritime law calls it Montreux. The treaty does 2 things. First, Turkey wins full sovereignty to remilitarize the straits, reversing the humiliation of Versailles. Second, it spells out exactly who can pass, when and how. Article 18 caps non-Black Sea naval powers at an aggregate of up to 45,000 tons inside the Black Sea. No single foreign warship can stay more than 21 days. That is why no US carrier strike group has ever entered the Black Sea. The Nimitz alone displaces 100,000 tons. Article 19 is the kill switch. In time of war, Turkey not a belligerent, warships of warring powers cannot transit at all. Article 21 extends the same power to peacetime, if Turkey feels threatened with imminent danger of war. February 28, 2022. 4 days after Russian tanks crossed into Ukraine, Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu declared the conflict a war and invoked Article 19. Turkey warned every country, Black Sea or not, to keep their warships out. No vote at the UN, no NATO summit, no coalition, one foreign minister, one sentence, one 90-year-old treaty, and the Russian Black Sea fleet froze in place. Look at what flows through this gap. The US Energy Information Administration puts roughly 3% of global oil supply through the Turkish Straits, about 2.4 million barrels a day in 2023, mostly Russian and Kazakh crude loading at Novorossiysk and Tuapse for Mediterranean refineries. Then the food. Before 2022, Russia and Ukraine combined supplied roughly 30% of the world's wheat exports, more than half of global sunflower oil, and 17% of corn. Most of it threaded the Bosphorus. When Russia invaded, the wheat market panicked. Chicago futures spiked. When the UN brokered the Black Sea Grain Initiative on July 22, 2022, Russia, Ukraine, Turkey, the UN, ships started moving again. 33 million tons of grain shipped over the next 12 months. Then on July 17, 2023, Russia walked away from the deal. Chicago wheat jumped nearly 9% in 2 sessions. The gap itself adds friction. Turkey's 1994 maritime traffic regulations restrict supertankers over 200 meters to daylight-only transits. Pilotage strongly recommended. Roughly 38,000 ships per year by 2023 Turkish data, squeezed through a strait narrower than 7 football fields. 3% of the oil, 12% of the wheat. One narrow corridor, and Turkey writes the schedule. The military piece. Before February 22, 2022, Russia's Black Sea Fleet, headquartered at Sevastopol in occupied Crimea, operated roughly 40 principal surface combatants plus 6 Kilo-class diesel submarines. The flagship was the Moskva, a Slava-class guided missile cruiser. April 14, 2022. 2 Ukrainian Neptune anti-ship missiles hit the Moskva. US intelligence helped target her. She sank. Over the next 2 years, Ukraine, a country with effectively no navy, used drones, cruise missiles, and improvised sea drones to damage or destroy roughly 1/3 of the entire Russian Black Sea fleet. UK Defense Intelligence confirmed the figure in February 2024. The Saratov landing ship, the Olenigorsky Gornyak, the submarine Rostov-on-Don hit in dry dock at Sevastopol in September 2023. The Caesar Kunikov, the Sergei Kotov. By late 2023, satellite imagery showed Russia evacuating most surviving warships from Sevastopol east to Novorossiysk, out of Ukrainian drone range. Here is the Montreux twist. Because Turkey invoked Article 19 on day 4, Russia cannot replace any of those losses. The Baltic Fleet cannot send a frigate, the Northern Fleet cannot send a destroyer, the Pacific Fleet cannot rotate a single hull. Every Russian warship sunk in the Black Sea since February 2022 stays sunk, unreplaceable. For as long as Turkey says the strait is closed. Turkey is a NATO member. Turkey buys Russian oil. Turkey sells Bayraktar drones to Ukraine. And Turkey alone holds the legal kill switch on Russian naval power in the Black Sea, a treaty older than NATO itself. The closure is asymmetric by design. Russia loses fleet rotation. NATO loses nothing. Bulgaria and Romania already sit inside the basin. Which brings us to Canal Istanbul. President Erdogan's proposed 45-kilometer bypass canal west of the Bosphorus. Estimated cost $15 billion. In April 2021, 104 retired Turkish admirals signed an open letter warning the canal could undermine the Montreux regime. 10 were briefly arrested. Construction has barely moved. The legal question lingers: does Montreux apply only to the named straits or to any waterway connecting the two seas? Next on Chokepoint, the Northwest Passage and the Cape of Good Hope. Two routes the world thought it had retired. Both back on the table as Arctic ice retreats and Red Sea shipping reroutes around Africa. We map the new sea lanes, the icebreaker arms race, and the question nobody at the Suez Canal Authority wants to answer. What happens when the oldest detour becomes the cheapest one? Subscribe. Every week we open a new choke point.